Hey, so Spencer, take us back. What was your first ever business venture and what sparked your interest in entrepreneurship?
I'm arguably not an entrepreneur at all. I'm arguably a salesman that became an entrepreneur by mistake. So if I go back to being in business for the first time, I was just learning to sell stuff. And so I used to sell office equipment in the city of London. And that's where I learned about being an intrapreneur as opposed to an entrepreneur, because I was on commission only. And I essentially had a company, a brand, a logo, products and whatnot, but I had to go out and find the clients and the opportunity. And the work that I was doing was to develop the business by finding those clients. If I didn't find any clients, then I didn't have any income. So I was much the same as an entrepreneur, but I just had that protection around me at the beginning.
Yeah. So then, can you overline what an entrepreneur and entrepreneur is for the people at home?
So the person that goes out and says, I've got an idea, I'm going to set up a company and I'm going to do X. And maybe they go and raise some finance, or they get a loan, or they use their savings and they start a company. That's an entrepreneur. An intrapreneur is somebody that works in business within a business. So network marketing is probably a good example of that. People go and join a network marketing company, and yes, there's product and there's a brand, but that's all there is. You've got to go out and find the opportunity. So there's many people that are intrapreneurs that have gone on to build a business, and they would maybe have started off as commission-only sales people, but they then had to do the marketing. Then they had to start thinking about how they use social media and stuff like that. But they have the protection of the fact they didn't come up with that brand in the first place.
So then, what made you then go into sales then and teaching people about sales?
Um, it came from frustration. So I'd been in sales for the best part of all of my career. And I was watching, and I was doing this for my own people. I was training my own people all the time. And I could just see that there was a real need from a lot of companies here in the UAE that just weren't training salespeople. So they were paying to recruit salespeople and then bringing them in, and they were kind of being left to their own devices. And then they had this high turnover of staff, and people couldn't understand why their staff were leaving. And I'm like, well, if you employ people, that's one part of the job. If you don't train them properly, then how on earth do you expect them to achieve anything? And so I saw that gap, and I thought, if I set up an online product, maybe I can help people with an online course so that they can learn more about sales. And then I realized that it wasn't just about online. People needed me in person to do the practical stuff with them.
So then, you have built a strong personal brand in finance and the coaching industries. How did your early experiences shape that path then? Like, so why then, instead of becoming the best salesperson yourself, did you then choose to help other people?
Because I was the best salesperson in my industry. And then going from being the best salesperson, I then went into management, which meant I had to build teams of salespeople. And so that was a natural progression for me. And again, if there's ways of making money in sales, then you want to find out what those ways are. And again, the sales training business came from frustration. It didn't come from me being some, renegade or some cavalier guy going out there going, yeah, I'm brilliant, I'm amazing. It was just looking at how badly people were trained, and then there's a market opportunity there. Maybe I should go and solve that problem.
So what was then the first key indicator then, or let's say the problem that the staff that people were hiring as sales people they had? What was it that they weren't educated in? Just the whole subject of sales, or was it a select problem that everyone was doing wrong?
Well, can you agree that if a business doesn't make any sales, it doesn't make any money?
Yes.
Okay, so then the most important thing for a business is to make money to be able to survive. And if the salespeople are the people bringing in the money, then surely these people need to have training to learn a skill, which is sales. And companies were employing people in, and they weren't acknowledging that sales was a skill, just like any other skill. And so they employed people in that were good communicators, or had the gift of the gab, or had a bit of chat, but they didn't actually know how to sell, but they just assumed they would do. Because a lot of people say selling is about being a good communicator. But no, it's not. Selling is about understanding the skill of asking people questions to find out their problems and then coming up with solutions to their problems. Well, for me, doing it for 30 years, it's easy for me. But for lots of people that start doing that job from a standing start, who's teaching them that? Who's teaching people how to do it?
Mm. So being a leader of this coaching scheme of helping people to learn how to sales, how hard is that then? then being basically the one, I know a lot of people that could go and do a coaching thing for sales, and then when it doesn't work out for them, it's your fault. You've taught me, he's taught me everything he needs to know. How do you deal with that then, as well as not just being successful in what you're learning is actually going to help them, but how do you also overcome that when people can just go at that? Because it's not 100% ratio where everyone's going to do well. They've also got to do well themselves, but it's easy to pin the blame on a coach and stuff like that.
If you blame somebody else.
Yeah, if you blame someone else.
Well, you blame somebody else for your failing. What are you really saying?
Yeah, well, it's just yourself.
Yeah, you know, you might as well point the finger back at yourself. I mean, people will always try and blame somebody else or something else for the reason they aren't where they want to be. They don't want to take accountability, responsibility, and ownership. And that will, until the end of time, till you're old and grey, just like I will be, okay, that will never, ever change, because human nature is blame before take responsibility. So if people have bought in the past one of my training courses and they haven't applied what they've learned, then they won't get very far. If they've bought the course and done exactly what I told them to do, verbatim, then they would have success. And they know that. People know that.
Yeah. So then, but then on the other hand, then, is there a time in your career at that point where you were like, oh shit, I have made a mistake here, and then what have you done to change that?
No, I didn't. Sell it. It's like, imagine if I'm teaching you to drive a car. A few years ago, you learn, yeah? Well, if I'm a qualified driving instructor and I teach you to drive a car, and I know how to drive a car inside and out, and I've taught loads of people just like you to drive a car, and now they pass their tests and they're driving, if it goes wrong for you, are we really blaming me? So as far as I'm concerned, it always comes back to them. It never comes back to me. I've got too much evidence proving I know what I'm doing. And I'm not saying it just because I think I know. I have the results. So I have no university degree. I have no formal education. I left school at 16. I didn't do very well. And I went out and I learned a skill and I became successful at doing it. All I'm trying to do is give people the same skills that I had. If people choose not to use it, that's their fault. I am not going to take any responsibility for people's poor behavior or poor commitment.
Yeah. So then at 17, that's it is a big thing. I'm still learning how to handle doubt and fear as well. So then how do you train your mind to stay sharp and confident when everything feels uncertain then?
I think uncertainty exists always.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's anything to do with business. I think it's to do with life. We sometimes fear failure. Sometimes we don't like the idea of committing just in case it goes wrong. We second guess ourselves. We overthink. We psychoanalyze. That's just human nature. I've doubted myself before, many, many times. But the only way I've been able to get past the doubt is by working through it, like that repetition of doing the same thing over and over and over again until I get good at it, then gives me the confidence that I need. And again, it's like anything in sales. If you go and see 10 people and you get 10 no's and you give up, okay, you don't understand sales. Go see 100 people and get 1 yes, and you'll realize that you're on the right path. Go and see 200 people and maybe get 2 yeses, and you're getting better, 300 and 4 and 5 and 6 yeses. You're just building up that confidence and building up that success. The trouble is everybody wants it easy. Everybody wants it quick. Everybody wants the solution, but then nobody wants to put the work in. Everyone wants to get rich quick, so they want to get into crypto. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Get rich quick, okay? Everyone wants to lose weight fast, so they're all taking Manjaro, yeah? Everybody wants to get muscly quick, so they take testosterone or steroids or whatever it is that they take. All of these shortcuts people are looking for, and that's why people out there are making fortunes, helping people buy into shortcut philosophy. But making money and being successful doesn't come with a shortcut. For every person that invested in crypto and made a load of money, there's 50 people that invested in crypto and lost their shirt. Yeah. And so it's like you have to learn whatever that industry is and whatever those skills are to ever get good at it.
Yeah. So, well, it's interesting you say that, because out of all the people that I've interviewed through the podcast, they've all said the exact same thing, no matter what sector they're in. So I've had Joe Seeley, works at manufacturing cupcakes, Dan Pena, Charlie Mullins Plumbing. They all say the same thing. You never give up at any stage. You don't take no for an answer and you keep going. Like you said, if you get 10 no's, the 11th might be it. But don't stop after 10. Yeah. So I think that's a key point for people at home to listen to, whereas it's never going to be easy. And as well, it's not out yet, but I've just had another recording before this where you say you don't plan to leave the house so that all the green lights at the traffic stops are all green. That just doesn't happen. You're going to get stopped at certain points. You don't know everything. You're going to just continue to keep going and learn it on the way. So, yeah. You've worked with thousands of people in sales and leadership. What's the single biggest mind flaw that hold most talented people back then?
Work ethic is what holds most people back. I've seen some people that I've interviewed, and I've looked at them and I'm like, you are going to be incredible. Like, literally came off an interview and talking to colleagues of mine going, this is the next big thing. This guy is special. Only for them to be absolutely useless. And then I've also seen people that I've gone, I don't know if I should give them a go. And I've gone with it anyway. And they've outworked everybody else. Yeah. And because they outworked everybody else, they created success. So where people get it wrong is the work ethic is always 9 times out of 10 very, very weak. You can't be successful working 9 to 5, 5 days a week. It's not possible. You've got to give up something to create success.
And how much do you see that then? Even like when you are teaching people and you bring in new people with the sales, how many times do you actually see that more than less? When people have got the brain and the wits about them to do it and just can't get their teeth into the work side of it. Like how many?
95% of the
95%.
Yeah. Nearly everybody, yeah.
And then on the flip side of that, how many is it? The other 5% then that you're, I don't know about him, and then they go and do something.
No,
really
it's
with
not.
it.
Not always the ones you don't know, because sometimes there are the talented ones, and you're like everything you guessed was right. So no, it's not about that. But most, as I keep saying, most people want to try and find a shortcut to success, and when they can't find a shortcut and they realize it's hard work, people don't have the stamina, the willpower, the discipline, the consistency. They just don't, but they want the outcome. Everyone wants to make $1 million and be all this and be all that, but no, you're a young entrepreneur. You're sitting there in the hospitality industry with bars and restaurants and stuff. It's hard work.
Yeah.
And if you thought for 1 minute it was going to be fun, easy, okay, a walk in the park and you could play golf on Saturday and Sunday and chill out twice a week and do whatever you wanted to do, then you're delusional, like genuinely delusional. And so for me, you got people out there going, there needs to be a work-life balance. Yes, for employees that get a salary that work 9 to 5. Yeah. Yes. But for the entrepreneur, the guy that's put his house on the line, the guy that's got the bank loan, the guy that's borrowed money, you don't get work-life balance. It just has to be all about creating success. And if that doesn't make your heart sing or excite your pants off you, then just go be a journeyman. Go and work for a company, get a salary, and have a peaceful life.
Definitely, because you've hit a spot there as well. Even in the hospitality industry, people are the main problem in that industry. And I've actually stopped, and this is a thing I'm still learning as I keep going, but when hiring, if someone says, I want a 9 to 5 type of life, no, you're not working for me. Just because, and it might just be my sector as well, but you can't be like that. I need you to be a bit flexible. I need you to help me out. I want ambition in my workworkplace. And
you pay them a salary?
Yeah, pay them a better one than most of the place.
Okay, but why would you want that?
But
why would you want them to love the company as much as you when they don't own it?
Well, I don't know.
Why do you want someone to work as hard as you
when they don't? When they don't have anything, it's a very good point. They're the people that have joined your business that want a work-life balance, that want a salary. To expect anybody to have the passion and desire and commitment that you've got is naive. You'll never find them. It's just not possible, because they would either be doing it themselves or they'd be saying to you at interview stage, I want to commit, but I want a piece of the action. Yeah? So what's the deal going to be? I'll give you my heart and soul, but I'm not doing it for a 9 to 5 salary. Those types of people are the people that are aligned with you. Yeah. But everybody else coming into your business, you will end up a very sad and miserable person, because you'll lose the will to live. No one's ever going to want it as much as you. Okay? When it's your business.
When it's your business.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Not thought about that, to be honest, but it's a good, really good.
If I came and worked for you and you said, I'm going to pay you 50 grand a year salary, okay, these are your hours, okay, great, okay, and do I get 4 weeks holiday? Whoa, what do you mean 4 weeks holiday? I want you committed like me. But you're paying me 50 grand. You're not paying me 50 million. You know, you're paying me 50 grand. It's like, what do you want? What do you want for my 50 grand?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're paying me 25 quid an hour.
Yeah.
Cheers, man. You know, and I'll take the money and I'll have the weekends off, thanks.
Yeah.
Because they're different to you.
Yeah,
they're just
completely
different.
yeah.
They're different, and that's okay
yeah.
because you need them.
Yeah,
You need people like that. But yeah, you just cannot. You'll just be miserable if you think otherwise.
Definitely. It's good to think about. Thanks for that. But so, can you tell me a bit more about Make It Happen then?
Yeah, I think there's some confusion, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I don't do sales training anymore.
No, I know that.
But Make It Happen was put together as a sales training platform. And I believed that people wanted to learn how to sell or needed to learn how to sell. What I learned is that there's essentially a B2B and a B2C business operating there. So B2C is where people come to me and I train them in a group, or they use my online training program, and they're just individuals.
Right.
B2C is where companies come to me and say, can you train our staff? And at first I was, yeah, of course I can. And they paid lots of money for doing it. So I was very happy with it. But what was happening is I was doing a training session, but those people didn't work for me. They worked for somebody else. So as soon as the training session ended, they could literally stick two fingers up to me and walk away. If I gave them homework, they didn't need to do it. You know, who am I to demand that of them? So I found out very quickly training other people's employees wasn't the easiest thing to do. But the second thing that I thought was really interesting is that in any business, if you've got the salespeople here, then above the salespeople is the sales manager, let's say. Above the sales manager is, let's say, the sales director. And above the sales director is maybe the managing director. So come in and train our salespeople. I'm like, okay, fine, no problem at all. So who usually trains them? Oh, the sales manager. Okay, so who trains him? I guess the sales manager should be trained by the sales director, right? Yeah. He should be trained by the sales. Okay, great, excellent stuff. So who trains the sales director? Well, I suppose it's the managing director. Okay, so the managing director is in charge of the sales director, who's in charge of the sales manager, in charge of sales people. Yeah. Okay, so who trains the managing director? So you're asking me to come in here at the bottom of your business and train people here, because the people that are supposed to train them don't know how to train them. And the people that are supposed to train them aren't being trained to be good leaders themselves by the people above them. And then the people above them is you. And you own the company, yet you're asking me to solve a problem down here. Arguably, you're the problem, not the salespeople. So don't you think it might be worth addressing you first, and then the sales director, the sales director, then the sales manager, and then the salespeople? Because if I leave here and I train the salespeople, and the sales manager doesn't carry on with that training, nothing's going to happen. But if I train the sales manager, okay, and after that sales manager doesn't carry on with his work because the sales director is not leading him properly, then you're just going to end up with the same problem. So yeah, pay me lots of money, but the reality is it won't solve a problem. You are the problem. And so for me, that's what I saw from like the revenue generating part of the business, not the ops or that part, but the revenue generating part of the business. I saw that there was a bigger problem there. And so the work that I've done since is I work and do strategic training and development with leaders in business. And I focus on one-to-one work I do with those people when I'm not running my other businesses.
And then they take that specialised training into their businesses themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. So that's really interesting. So you've took basically one part of a business and then found out how to improve the full thing from all of it, essentially.
You know, if I come into your business and I talk to you to help you make your business better, or I come in and I help with the waiters.
Yeah, you'd rather speak to me.
Because you are going to be the person that filters everything. You're going to teach it, filter it down, And so that's why it needs to be you. And so identifying that. And again, the problem you have with lots of business owners is they have a big ego, or they've never had coaching or mentoring. And those people that have that ego, well, they're never going to get it. But the people that are humble enough, and often that happens when a CEO is struggling. So maybe you've seen Gordon Ramsay does his kitchen nightmares thing, He goes into a restaurant that's failing. He doesn't go into a successful restaurant, does he?
No.
He goes into one that's failing. And invariably, it's the owners of the business that he has to talk to. Yeah? And so I think that's the same in any business. So either a business has to struggle before the owners realize they need help, or, okay, you've got really humble owners and operators of businesses that say, do you know what? In order for us to be really successful, we need to add skills to our repertoire to make us better leaders.
Right. Okay, so what's one sales strategy that most people overlook that can be a game changer then in business?
So I think there's two types of selling. There's push selling and pull selling. Okay, so push selling is where you go out hunting for your prospects. Pull selling is where people come to you. Right. Now, if you had the choice, okay, go find your prospects or prospects knock on your door, what would you choose?
Take them come to you.
Absolutely. That's your dream scenario. Mm-hmm. Okay, so how do you then get that to happen? Where are people's eyeballs right now? Well, first of all, they're staring at their phone. They're watching telly. They're still staring at the phone. They're in the car. They're still staring at their phone. It doesn't seem to stop, does it, you know? So can I get people's attention and start to educate them in a way where I can start to make them think? So that, for me, I think is really important. And a lot of people in sales don't understand how social media is incredibly powerful, how content creation can tell stories and help people become familiar with a brand or a business in ways they hadn't done before. The other thing that I think that's really important that is people say they do it, okay, but I don't believe they do it like they think they do, and that's referrals.
Right.
So I had, when I was your age and I was selling, I had three choices. I could cold call, I could network, or I could get referrals. Well, I didn't like cold calling, and I hated networking, like passionately hated joining a group of strangers in a room to get to know them and have that horrible small talk that takes place. It was just like, eh. So to me, it was like, okay, it's got to be referrals. And so then I worked out what I wanted my outcome to be. So I wanted to earn £1 million 1 year. And so I'm like, how do I do that? Well, I knew that to earn £1 million, I needed to see 10 prospects a week. And I knew that not every meeting that went in my diary stuck. Sometimes it rescheduled. And so I thought if I get 15 meetings in my diary, I'll see 10. Right. If I see 10, then I'll close enough to generate £20,000 worth of business. £20,000 a week for 50 weeks is $1 million. So I knew that I needed to have 15 meetings in my diary. So I started to look at that. And I said, so I have 15 meetings. How many referrals do I need to get one meeting? Well, and my statistics showed that I needed 3 referrals to get 1 meeting. So if I need 15 meetings, I need 45 referrals. That meant I need 9 referrals a day. That meant I needed 4.5 in the morning and 4.5 in the afternoon. This is how my brain worked. And so I built out referral presentations, 6 different referral presentations that I developed and memorized. And then I built that into my sales process. And I refused to do business with anybody unless they referred me.
Right. Okay.
And so where our industry might have been asking for 1 or 2 referrals from various clients they worked with, I was asking everybody for 5 or 10. Right. Everybody for 5 or 10.
Everyone that you dealt with.
Everyone. Mm-hmm. Everyone, whether they became a client or they didn't. 5 or 10 people that they know that I don't know. And within those referral presentations, I showed them how important it is that they referred me so that I could help more people. Mm. What I see in sales all the time is everybody wants referrals. Everybody agrees referrals are great. Everybody wants to phone somebody up that's interested in said product or service. But people are fearful, okay, of getting referrals in case somebody says no and they have to face rejection. For me, if I saw 15 people, if I got 5 or 10 referrals, or I asked for 5 or 10 referrals from 15 people during the course of a week, surely I'm going to end up with 45. Mm. And I just became obsessed. It was everything. And so that obsession meant that there was no way, like without fail, under any exception, I was going to go ahead and finish my day without having 9 referrals.
Yeah.
Then that became a habit. That became routine. That became my norm. And when that happened, I was able to completely dominate my industry. And that was before we had social media. That was in the mid-90s.
Yeah, so coming back to, like, with that obsession again, it's just, I'm sure the question I've got for you is, well, were there a lot of times where they wouldn't give you referrals?
Yeah.
So then it's just straight back to that link with the obsession then. How many times you needed to get 4.5 in the morning, 4.5 in the day, every day.
4.5 morning, 9 a day, 4 in the morning, yeah.
How many no's you got as well?
Loads.
As well. just keep going, keep going. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's just
Not everyone says yes.
relentless.
Yeah. How arrogant am I to think that everyone's going to say yes? How arrogant am I to think that everyone's going to like me and want to buy my products or service? What kind of an idiot am I to think that everyone's going to say yes to me?
Yeah.
I know in sales that I get more no's than I get yeses. I know that. But I don't see that as a problem. I see that those no's you have to get so that you earn the yeses. And this is where people in sales really struggle. They get rejection. Someone says no and they go, oh, he doesn't like me. And it's like, well, he just might not be the right time. He doesn't maybe like your product. Maybe there's something. It's not always personal. But remember something, it's always your responsibility. And so you have to take full ownership of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's something that people don't want to do. They don't want to own the no's. I tell you what, they get a yes. Do they thank anybody else for the yes? No, they're walking around going, come on, I'm amazing. I've got the yeses. I'm brilliant, yeah? They get the no's. Well, he's this, she's that, stupid idiot, okay? Rather than, do you know what? I didn't do a very good job in that meeting, or I could have done better. I need to go analyze where I got the no's to see how I can turn them into yeses in the future.
Yeah. Okay. So what has been your proudest achievement so far then?
In business? Okay. In 1999, I won globally Financial Advisor of the Year. And there was a guy I was competing with, and his name's Alex Prentice. And Alex was a much older guy than me. I was 29 years old. He was like 50, really experienced, had this big client base. And it was like, he won every year. And it was like, how am I ever going to beat this guy? And then what I knew is that he would go and do his work in stages. And so he wouldn't work the whole year. He'd take time off. But when he was working, it was mega business that he was doing. So he was dealing with much wealthier clients. And we were selling investments at the time. And I was living in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And I knew that he was going to stop on the 1st of December. So I just kept my head down and kept going and kept going. And on the 1st of December, he dropped in like £50,000 worth of business. And I was just like, because our cutoff for Christmas was the 19th. And I was just like, shit, man, he's only done a fuck. And I was like, well, don't stop. And so what we did, and again, this is before the technology exists today, I worked every single day, 18 hours every single day. And on the very last day, the 18th, usually you would send a DHL courier. And that would take a couple of days for that business to arrive at the head office. Well, we couldn't afford for it to miss the cutoff. So one of us got on a plane with all the paperwork and flew, to head office with all the paperwork to get it in and submitted. And I beat him by just £5,000, but I beat him. And we got to the end of the year, and I didn't know until there was hundreds of people in the Grosvenor House in Park Lane, and we didn't know we'd won. And they did the 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and it's right, and the winner is, they didn't announce second place, and the winner is. And Alex was sitting there with his wife, and kind of like, yeah, well, I'm amazing. And I was sitting there just waiting for them to call my name out as being the person that didn't win. And they said in first place this year, and a new. And when they said new, I knew it was me. And I exploded. And I was so happy, and I ran up on stage, and something beautiful happened. Halfway through that year, I was in Mexico with my boss in Mexico City, and we were just gone for a walk around the fancy area one day, and he was looking at watches. And so he went into this Cartier store, and he tried this watch on, and he asked the lady how much it was, and she said whatever the price was. He said, I think that's a bit outside of my budget. And he said, Spence, come and look at this watch. So I went over, and I looked at the watch, and it was this solid gold Cartier. He said, what do you reckon of that? And I'm like, that's mega, that is. Wow, what a watch, Wow, like that. He said, do you like it? I said, that's big league watch, that. He went, yeah, I know. He goes, don't even ask the price, it's terrifying. I thought, oh. Anyway, that was it. That was the moment. Okay, we left, we went off, went back to work, blah, blah, blah. When I went on stage to collect my award, he gave me this bag, and he said, this is just a thank you from me for the work that you've done this year. You were amazing. And I just took the gift, not knowing what it was, and I went down back to the table, and I took it out of the bag, and it was the watch. And I've just sobbed my eyes out, and on the back of it, it just had engraved on the back of this watch, number 1. And it was a really, really powerful moment for me when that happened, and it kind of cemented all of the hard work and all of the commitment and the sacrifices, and made it all worthwhile. So that was a really, really proud moment, I remember.
As well as, like, coming from a younger person as well, who won't have a lot of competitors, say my age, in a business realm. It must be amazing beating someone that's so much, more experienced than you, in a sense, isn't it? Like, regardless of the watch that was given as well, you're just like, wow, I've actually done it. And bringing it as well back to the 18 hours a day for that time and month. Well, backing it up a bit, what do you think of then, for example, your competitor stopping at times? What do you think about that
again,
method of working?
Different people have different ways of working.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that some people have the ability to work in different ways and still get fantastic results.
Yeah.
And so if somebody works for 3 months, 90 days every day, not a weekend off, and then they take 2 weeks off, well, that's the same as them taking the weekend off.
Yeah.
So you have to allow people their own way of doing things. Had he not taken as much time off, he'd have won by a country mile.
Yeah.
But it gave me the opportunity, and once I beat him, then I couldn't lose. There was nothing in me that would allow me to ever lose again.
Yeah.
It was
So so did you just continue then to keep?
I dominated
the
industry from 1999. I joined the industry in 93, 94. From 1999, I dominated the industry up until 2013. It was there was nobody that can compete with me. When I came to Dubai, the company I was with, we bought a company here, and there were 12 employees. And so I came into the office on the first day 20 years ago in January, and there were 12 guys. And at the end of the week, I'd fired 7 of them. So there were 5 of us. And the Middle East was literally 5 people plus me. Now, the Far East, which we competed with, had over 100 people. Europe had over 100 people. Africa had over 80 people. So we were like miles and miles away, yeah? And I started the beginning of the year, and I'm like, well, we're going to beat everyone this year. And I had literally a small group of people. So I went mad on recruiting, like become obsessed with it. And again, the last day of the year, we beat the most successful region in the business, which was the Far East. And we beat them by 60 grand. And bear in mind, this is millions and millions. So 60 grand was like 50 quid. It was like that close.
Yeah.
But we won. And I remember standing on stage, and it was just like...
As well as starting from the lower end of it as well.
Yeah. And they had a guy in the Far East they didn't want. They'd fired. Okay. Right. What was his name? Steve something. They'd fired this guy. Okay. He was, to them, they thought he was useless. And I had a call with him, and I'm like, I'm going to give him a go. And he came to work with me, and he did 60 grand. So we won by the 60 grand that he did from a guy they fired, which was kind of even better.
That's brilliant.
But once you win, what happens is, when you're really successful in sales, or you're really successful in sales leadership, what happens is it attracts people that want to get whatever that magic dust is that you've got. They want you to sprinkle it on them, and so they want to be in proximity of you. So recruiting people when you're winning in an industry became so much easier. Yeah, so much easier. Yeah.
You tend to notice that. I think that's with all business though as well. Even you look at some people who have started from nothing and now they're industry leaders. All their business now comes from people approaching them. Like it's easy for them now because everyone knows that they're good at what they do. So, and then back as well. So, 1st of December comes. He stopped working. You're then 18 hours a day. How do you maintain discipline and drive to do that? Because then, as well, a lot of people on the December 1st when they've seen, oh, he's put in 50 grand. Oh shit. I'm never going to be able to do that no matter what. But you continued and then also drove a lot more, well, essentially double the hours than what a 9-to-5 person would work in a day to do that, and then every day as well. How do you maintain that discipline and drive?
You have to enjoy what you're doing. So it wasn't painful. I enjoyed it. And look, winning isn't everything. It's the only thing.
Yeah.
And if you gave me the option of being number 1, okay, and earning 200,000, or number 2 and earning 400,000, give me number 1.
Yeah,
all day, every
number
day.
1.
I don't. The money is so irrelevant to me. It's this that I have to win. So if we're competing and in business and it's not big money, it doesn't matter. To me, it's the winning. It's the proving to myself I could beat anybody. And so as long as the playing field is level, you know, if it's you're going into an arm wrestling competition with a bodybuilder who's got big muscles, then it's an unfair playing field. But in business and in sales in particular, you could be 18, I could be 80. Don't make any difference. Yeah. Okay, who's going to win? The person that wants it most, the person that works the hardest. And I like that. You know, I like that.
That's a good thing you've met as well, because people my age as well, and I know a few people in sales, whether it's realty or stuff. This will be a good question for them. So there you go. For example, I'm working on commission in Dubai, selling houses. You know, you're 18, you're young, you've just moved to Dubai, not a lot of experience, and you've got people in your company that are doing mega millions, a bit older, maybe 30, 40, 50s, getting like that. And I'm not saying it's an excuse, but it could be an excuse that you use, oh, people don't trust me because I'm 18, I'm too young, I've not got enough experience, people can't trust that I'm going to sell them a good house or for a good price or if I'm going to be professional. What can you say to the younger people then like that are in that situation then?
So I was the young person. So so when I first joined the financial services industry, I went for an interview and they wouldn't give me a job. I was 23 years old. They said, you're too young. We need you to be 25. And I'm like, but I can do it. And they're like, well, sorry. And I went to the managing director of the company. I went to his office and sat outside his office for 4 hours and waited for him to come and convinced him to give me an opportunity, which he did. And when I first joined the industry, my boss, his name was Ian Moulding, he sat me down and he said, look, do you think that a 50-year-old man is going to trust his life savings to a 23-year-old kid? Be honest.
No.
And I'm like, yeah, maybe not. He's like, so you have no life experience. So what do you bring to the table? Right now, this minute, what do you bring to enthusiasm, attitude, desire to learn? He's like, okay, I'll take that. You said desire to learn. I went, yeah. He went, okay, good. And he gave me 9 books. And he said, I don't want to see you in the office until you've read them and you can bring me a summary of each book. I was like, fuck. And I went away and I had to read these books. And bear in mind, I didn't know anything about the financial markets at that point. And I was having to learn, like from going and reading the Daily Mail to reading the Financial Times. The Daily Mail I could understand.
Yeah.
The Financial Times was gobbledygook. It was a whole new language. But that's essentially what he was teaching me to do. So I read the 9 books. I went back at the end of the 4 weeks and I gave them the books and I summarized them all. He said, brilliant job, excellent. That's really going to help you. And then he gave me another 9 books.
Can you remember any of the books that were in there?
They were all investment related books. So they're investments and tax, financial markets, stock markets, everything. They're all kind of industry type books. But he said to me, he said, look, after I did the second set of books, he said, look, people are never going to trust your life experience. But if you can demonstrate you're a hotshot, you're a kid hotshot that's a guru that really knows your subject, people will find trust in that and they'll find you credible. And that's what you have to lean into. And so he was teaching me a valuable lesson. So young people like yourself, why would I trust a youngster like you when you don't have the life experience and haven't made those mistakes? Well, if you know your industry inside out, upside down and back to front, and you know it better than anybody else I know, then now you're gonna come to the meeting with me with an arsenal of value. And that value is something that I will pay attention to. Yeah. And so when you look at these real estate brokers that start the job and they're young, okay, are you experts? No. Okay, well, what are you doing every single night to become one? Right. What are you doing every single Saturday? Are you going out having a drink on Friday night when you could be studying? Are you having a drink on Saturday night or shagging girls when you could be studying? I hate to be as crude as that, but that's the truth. You have the opportunity. We've all got the same amount of hours in the day. Elon Musk is talking about putting people on Mars, and someone's asking you to learn the property industry in one city. Really? That tough, is it? And then it comes down to all of those young people. How bad do you want it? You can see people making a lot of money in your company. They clearly want it more than you. And if someone's 20, 25 or 30, makes no difference. It's the attitude, the desire to learn and the willingness to apply yourself. And so if you're in the real estate industry right now and you're not literally learning everything, if you're doing an area, let's say your area is Emirates Hills or the Palm, that's your area, and you don't know everything about every house on those streets, the square footage, the owner's names, the blah, 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 everything you need to know, then you're doing yourself a disservice. You've got to be obsessed and obsessive to really create success, whether you're selling real estate, okay, or anything else for that matter.
So you've just named really, and that's like, you got to be obsessed, you got to know your stuff and do your research. But what are your then non-negotiable habits and routines that you do? And it doesn't even need to be like, for example, reading books, and that's a part of it as well, but also in the terms of if you're getting up at 4 a.m. every day, if you're, but whatever you take away with what you think is
Morning, and some people are evening people. So I just use processes that people call them habits, but they're just routines. I wake up at 4:30. I go to the gym at 5. I finish at the gym at 6. And so I do that because I want to be really alert and alive in the morning. I get to the office for 7:15 so I can prepare. I train everybody every day at 8 o'clock. Everyone, we do an hour's training every day, non-negotiable. It's not an option. We're going to do training every day at 8 till 9. Some people go, I love the training. Some people go, I don't love the training. Okay, they love the training when I'm talking. They don't love the training when I'm making them role play. Okay, because they don't want to be exposed, because they're fearful of being exposed. But it exists. For me, none of these are negotiable. If whatever industry you're in, you should be reading and learning and watching and studying everything about that industry. So if you're working as an investment advisor, then you should know what the stock markets are doing. You should know the price of Bitcoin. You should know the price of gold. You should know what crude oil is trading at. You should know how the markets have performed. You should know what the trade war between the United States and China, the impact it's having on stocks. You should know about currencies. You should understand the commodities market, and you know, understand the German bunds, the gilt market, and every other corporate bond that exists. You should know that. Okay, you should know about interest rates. You should see what's going on in different parts of the world. You should know the name of the stock markets around the world. People don't even know what the Hang Seng is, the Nikkei. They don't know what the Straits Times Index is. People are in financial services and they don't even know what the Bovespa and the Bovespa are. Now, there's one guy I know in financial services said, there's a guy out there called Dow Jones. He's following me around everywhere I go. Everyone seems to be talking to Dow Jones. And I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, who is he? And I'm like, what do you mean, who is he? That's the name of a market. And he went, oh, really? People quote the NASDAQ. They don't even know what the NASDAQ stands for. They quote the NASDAQ. They know the FTSE 100. People don't even know what the FTSE is. Most people can't even describe it in an industry. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's a really tough gig. No, it's not a tough gig. Do your homework. Study. You know, otherwise you're doing a disservice to you and your family, and way more importantly to your clients.
Yeah. Mm. So then, moving on from sales and stuff to building brands, and yourself, you've built a massive online presence.
Have I?
I would say so.
What makes you say that?
Well, I think you have. Due to your podcast and your Instagram and stuff, I think you have got.
What's
done well
massive
with it.
about having 200,000 YouTube subscribers, 50,000 Instagram, 50,000 Facebook, 40,000 LinkedIn, 45,000 TikTok? What is massive about that?
I think
massive is millions.
Well, fine then, I'll retract that. For me, big and very successful then. We'll say successful.
How do you measure
brands.
that?
Through reach, I would say. Through reach.
How do you know I'm reaching?
Well, that's due to your followers and videos, I would say, and viewers.
That's interesting you say
Yeah.
that. And the only reason I'm asking that question, okay, is that there's an assumption made there.
Mm-hmm.
All right? I look at my social media and I think it's a miserable failure.
Right.
I think my podcast
You could
is
do better.
nowhere near as good as it could be. I think my social media audience is tiny compared to others. You know, and sometimes I do wish I had fake lips and big boobs. Maybe that would help me. But the fact is, I don't have a big following. You know, and so when I look at the work I've done over the last 6 or 7 years on my social media, okay, I've tried hard, but I've made a lot of mistakes. And of course, I haven't stopped giving up with the podcast, but I look at it and I'm like, I'm still not Joe Rogan. Bartlett started after me. He's thrashing me. I look at the High Performance podcast and that's thrashing me. And so I'm like, really?
Well, the way I'd look at it is, I fully understand where you're coming from. And to be honest, I could think I would probably be the same when I'm get to your shoes, as in you get to 220,000, you can do so much better. But that's the mindset you are, where you can always do better in yourself. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at the start, well, I'd be happy to get to this level. I want to get to where you are, but I know when I get there, I'm going to want to do it, push it even further. And that's not going to be the goal, the end goal. But you need to also set realistic goals where you can then keep leveling up from.
Or you can look at other people that have done a better job than you, and you can beat yourself up because you didn't do a good job.
Yeah, I guess so. But then you're just gonna beat yourself up all the time.
And sometimes that's what you need to be able to become successful.
Yeah.
Sometimes my boss used to say to me when I was young, he said to me, "You have a unique ability," and he used this term, and it was his term only. And he said, "You have this ability to self-bollock." And I'm like, "What does that mean?" He said, "We'll get to the end of the week," he goes, "and I'll call around the world to the offices and find out how much business has been done. Okay, and if you haven't earned £10,000 that week," he said, "you're devastated." He said, "Most people that haven't earned 10,000, they might have earned 8 or 9. They're buzzing. You're sitting there gutted." He said, and he goes, it's that makes your fire burn brighter because it eats away at you.
Yeah.
And so when I see 50,000 Instagram followers for the best part of a year and a half now and not really growing, and being told you've got to spend some money if I want to grow it, I'm like, shit, maybe a lot of people aren't interested. But what also I've learned along the way is actually people don't know what I do. You know, people think I've got a podcast, yeah, which I have. But people don't talk to me ever about the companies that I own.
No.
They talk about sales. They talk about sales training like you did. They talk about make it happen. But they don't talk about the wealth management company I own in the DIFC.
Yeah.
They don't talk about the insurance business that I own in Business Bay and with the central bank. They don't know about the HR platform that we've created and the people that I employ and the businesses that I run. So it's really interesting. And that's not because they've done anything wrong. It's because I have.
It's what a lot of it's what's posted online is all it is, really. Do you not get that? Where perception is reality again, where whatever you're posting about and the main thing, that's what's going to get focused on. You're not getting the ins and outs of it, if you know what I mean.
I invite people on the podcast and I spend half an hour getting to know them first. Then I do an hour and a half interview. Then I have a cup of tea at the end with them. Then they go. Once the podcast is published, I call them and I say, "Can I come and see you? I want to talk to you about the podcast." They say yes. I go and see them and I say, "I just want to say thank you so much. My audience love you." And they're like, "Ah, cool." You know, really happy, yeah? I then say to them, "I know everything about you, but you don't know anything about me. Do you know what I do for a living?" And they go, "Well, you've got a podcast." And I'm like, "Yeah, but do you know my what business I'm in?" And they're like, "No." I then explain to them what I do. And I say, "I think I can bring some value to your business. Maybe you're not the decision maker, maybe somebody else is. But I want to try and see if I can bring that value. Would that be something you'd be prepared to do?" And they say, obviously, yes. But they don't know what I do for a living. And one of the interesting things about social media is that when you own a business that's in the DIFC that sells wealth management advice, I am not allowed to post content with that company name on without getting written approval from the Dubai Financial Services Authority first. Really? So every single post, no matter what it is,
to go and get
I have to have
permission.
it approved by the authorities first. Imagine that.
Why is that then?
Because they don't want anyone going out there saying, "Do you want to make 50% return on your money, governor?"
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Guaranteed returns, double digits.
So then, on that then, what is the biggest piece of advice for people wanting to do what you've done? And I know you're saying you're not happy with it and you could do so
Wanting
much
to
better.
do what bit?
Grow a podcast and a following and...
To grow a podcast, you know, here's the podcast stats you might not have heard before. 5 million podcasts have been started. Last month, 380,000 of them published an episode. That means that most didn't. The average length of podcast lasts is 7 episodes. The average length. So most people give up after 7 episodes. They run out of money, creativity, whatever it may be, yeah? And so when you look at podcasting, I'm at 350 episodes. I'm in the top 1% of episodes. There are people out there that have done way more than me, but I'm in the top 1% of episodes. I'm not even scratching the surface compared to my peers Okay, but I'm thrashing the people that have done 7 episodes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would I say? If you're going to start a podcast, be very clear on what the podcast is about, because I've chopped and changed and got that wrong. Be very committed to doing at least 50 episodes.
Right.
Do 5 or 10 episodes that you don't use so that you can learn your skills,
Okay.
and just practice it, because you're going to get it wrong. And those 5 episodes can be with your nan. They can be with your best mate. It doesn't have to be with anyone in,
Just practice.
anyone. Yeah, practice it, film it, film it and look at yourself. Use your mobile phone on a tripod. Film it and look at yourself, and you'll find that will be valuable for you as a learning experience. Ask every podcaster for advice. Like, literally, if you want to build a successful podcast, reach out to them all. Say, can I come and watch you film an episode one day? Can I come and sit and just be in the room while you do these interviews? I'd love to learn. They're the people that are dedicated to making a great podcast. The people that want a podcast but don't want to put the hard work in, it's the same as everything else they do in their life.
Yeah.
It's like you having your bar and only open 2 nights a week. Yeah, I can't. You know what? I like playing golf.
Yeah.
It ain't going to work, is it, you know? You'd be better at golf than you are at business. What does work-life balance mean? Work-life balance means understanding that there's things outside of work that matter too.
Right.
Okay, so your hobbies and interests are as valuable or to some degree valuable in your life. If you want to build a really successful company, you have to give up. Yeah, and again, if it's painful, then it's probably not the right thing to do anyway. You've got to want to do it. You've got to get up every day and think about it. And and you want to, whenever you're in a social setting, you want to be talking to people about it, or talking to people that think about that kind of stuff too. And so, imagine going to a networking event and you're a founder, a startup, or whatever it may be, and you're obsessive and obsessed and disciplined, and you only bump into janitors and librarians. You'll have nothing in common, yeah? So you need to be around people that have that same kind of behavior. And people can slag it off all they want, but you have to remember, these founders that work 18 hours a day that build successful businesses also employ a lot of people and give them jobs and pay them money, which helps pay for the rent and the mortgages of those people and their kids' futures. So be very careful not to pick holes at it, in my opinion. worked with me, and he was this kind of older guy, quite funny. We were all kind of young, kind of driven, look a little bit like you, all stereotypically looking salespeople. And I said to him, I was making about 50 grand a year. So this was like 1990, let's say. And compared to all my friends, I was flying, yeah. And but I was spending it all. So I always had no money. And it was like, how can I be earning, people that are married have got 3 kids and a mortgage, live on less than this, yeah, and I'm spending it all. And I said to him, how do I make a lot of money? And he just looked me in the eye and said, you know the secret to making lots of money? I was like, what's that, Seamus? He's like, work with money. I went, what do you mean? He went, think about it. And it was literally, that's all he said. Yeah. But it set my brain off. And whoa, what does he mean? Be a stockbroker. What was it he meant? I didn't know what he meant. And then a couple of months later, I got the opportunity to go and work in financial services. And I'm like, oh, what Seamus said was right. This is what he meant, working with money. And what I learned is that when you work with money, you get exposed to people with money that are on a whole different level. Yeah. And then these unrealistic things start to come into your periphery. So like out of this world to now my periphery, and it makes you start questioning what's possible. When it's unbelievable, it often keeps you far enough away from it. But when you see people, and he's just a bloke, and he's making 10 times what you're making, you then start to ask yourself the question, what is he doing and how do I do that? Rather than that could never be me. And I think that was, very, very inspiring for me.
Definitely, and even... I'm sure there's definitely loads of times that there's people that you met, it's money with, you can't even fathom how it's done, and then you especially you meet them in a financial services term, and you're like, well, they are just a regular person. They are just people.
I have friends who are billionaires.
Yeah.
Okay, and they are just regular people.
Regular people, yeah.
They don't see themselves as billionaires. The only ones that are billionaires that do see themselves are the one with inherited wealth.
Yeah.
People that have made that really big amount of money in different ways they've done that. They know they're just normal people. Mm-hmm. Then what someone said to me once is they just think with two extra zeros on everything than you. That's all they're doing. All they think is with 2 extra zeros. And I was like, what? Mm. And then it was like, and then I get to know the billionaires, and one interesting thing a friend of mine who's a billionaire said, I said to him, when I look at spreadsheets, the numbers lift up off the page and I can move those numbers around in my mind and I can put them back down to create something. And he's like, oh, well, that's really interesting. I said, does that happen to you? He's like, no. He said, but I can taste numbers. And I'm like, you're being serious? He said, yeah. He goes, I literally can taste. When I look at a spreadsheet, I can taste the money. And he's like, can't you taste the money? And I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, I can taste it. And it's really interesting with a billionaire being able to describe that for me. Mm-hmm. It's just like, how does that, is it a sixth sense he has? But he's able to taste the numbers. And I'm like, what motivates you? And he's like, money. And I'm like, what else? He's like, what else is there? And he just looked at me. He's like, but what else is there? I'm like, well, and I rattled off a bunch of stuff. He's like, that's just all nonsense.
Yeah, yeah.
He goes, people that make a lot of money like making money. He goes, and I like making money. Mm-hmm. He goes, and I made loads of bad decisions, and I made some good decisions, but I like making money. And I think that whatever you want to make that money for, just because it makes you feel good, that's just as worthy as because you want to save the world.
It's great as well, because quite a few people have that mindset as well, where they go like that. And I know a lot of people say enjoy what you do as well and all that, but people like that, they also seem to, because they love money so much and they want to make money, they'll enjoy anything doing it to make money, yeah. Like, whereas a lot of people, they won't do stuff because it's some amount of work they got to do, or it's not the right sector, I don't like actually doing that and stuff. But when your sole motivation is money, yeah, you actually enjoy doing whatever it takes to make it. Mm-hmm. So I've got that from a few different people as well. It's an interesting point though, because then it's also no excuses really. Just if the money's there, make it.
Look, it's really sad, but this is true. Everything, without exception, is in the mind. And all it is the wiring and rewiring and coding and programming of your mind. That's all it is. How you think about yourself, how you think about things, how you think to apply things, you know, whether you think you're worthy. There's too many examples of the power of the mind that exist. There was a lady that won Slimmer of the Year in the UK 4 or 5 years ago. She was really overweight, and two kids, she was in a McDonald's car park eating a burger. And two kids cycled past and saw a big fat lady eating a burger, and they threw their burgers through the window out. There you go, have some of that, fatso. And in that moment, she was so humiliated, she went, never again. Said to herself, never, ever again. And then she went off to lose 40 kilos or something, some amazing weight loss. You have these places, times that we get to, women and men in, excuse me, women and men in a relationship. The man cheats once, the woman forgives. The man cheats twice, the woman forgives but is unhappy. The man cheats 3 times. He's just crossed that line. Never again. Never again. And it doesn't matter what you say, what you do, how you position it. It's done. Like the lady that was in the car, like the lady that gets cheated on. It's done. That is just our brains being controlled in a certain way by the information that we feed it. We have a subconscious and a conscious. Our subconscious is literally a risk management device. It wants us to lay on the sofa with a bag of, or a tube of Pringles with the remote control and stare at the telly. That's what subconscious wants you to do. Don't take any risks. Your conscious mind has to overrule the subconscious mind. The conscious mind needs to be trained to be able to do that. And the people that are successful, and I don't mean just with money, successful neurosurgeons, because successful scientists, successful whatever, okay, are able to control their subconscious with their conscious. The people that make a lot of money, they will have some weaknesses just like everybody else. So they'll be strong at certain things. One of my friends who's a billionaire wakes up every day panicking about money. Imagine that. Being a billionaire and waking up every day panicking about money. And for the first 15 minutes of his day, he panics. Then he opens his phone and he looks at his bank balances and he realizes he's okay. It's mad, yeah? But that's what that person does. And so everything we do, it's just the stories we tell ourselves, what we can have, what we can't have. If you keep telling yourself what you can have is billions, okay, your brain will start to look. If you just decide what you want, what generally happens is the world gets out of your way, but most people are fearful of deciding. You know, you have to ask the universe for permission, and people are uncomfortable asking the universe. And so where I hear about the word manifestation happening a lot, I don't believe you can wish something to happen, but what you can do is you can manifest a mindset that then encourages you to take the action to execute. Yeah.
So is that is that the definition of manifestation then, or is that
To me?
the way? Yeah, to you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all the other stuff, just chanting and all that crap. You can dream about being successful all day long. It's all nonsense.
Yeah.
But you have to tell yourself
to put in the
over and
work
over.
in.
I wake up in the morning, and when I'm having a shave, I have a look in the mirror, and I talk to myself. Like I properly talk to myself. I look into my pupils for about a minute or two while I clean my teeth and have a shave, and I just ask myself, what kind of day are we going to have today? Are you going to get in my way? Are you going to work with me?
And that's something that deeply helps you think, and it's something so simple, and you probably don't even take notice to it now. You just do it out of a habit, but that is something that defines the day, essentially. Yeah. Do you think
Have you ever talked to yourself sitting in the car driving down the road?
Yeah.
You ever question yourself? That's because you're a human being. We all do.
Yeah.
Every one of us does.
Yeah.
So why not have a chat? You know, you got to walk around like the village idiot. It's just that, have a chat with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, because you'll do that. You know, you'll sit in the car and say, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I? And then you'll decide. Well, why can't you do that when it comes to your career?
Mm-hmm. Okay then. So, say if we were to strip it all back and you were to start again, what would you do differently, if so anything?
I think I'd do lots differently. I think I would have, if I know what I know now, I would have learned about money. Like really learned how you can make money. I didn't learn that till late, so I blew a load of money. I'd have been really disciplined with how I use my money. So I would have taken half of everything I earn and invested it and been fully committed to that all the way through. So that would have been something I did. I think I'd have understood different industries and where the potential to make money is. Mm-hmm. I was given the opportunity to invest in Bitcoin when Bitcoin was, I think, $11. And I was like, another fad. You know, my luck would have been, I invested in Bitcoin at $11. I bought $1 million worth at $11, and I bought it in an exchange that went bust. That would have been my bad luck, you know. There was an exchange back then called Mt. Gox, and I would have been the guy that had
done it. Yeah,
you know, had billions in Bitcoin in Mt. Gox that went tits up. Oh. There's so many things that I would have done differently. There are countries I've lived in I would have stayed longer in. There's countries I wouldn't have gone to. I would have learned a lot and listened to my parents about some things I didn't listen. Mm. So I used to, when I was your age, I used to have a big group of mates. And my dad said to me, there's only 4 people in your life that will be your real friends. Mm-hmm. And I was like, shut up, you don't know anything. But the fact is, there is only 4 people in my life that are my real friends. Yeah. My dad gave me loads of wisdom, but I wasn't in a brain space of wanting to listen. And my mum and my dad did know way more than me and way better than me about many things. And so I wished I'd have taken more of their advice. And I wished I'd have done a better job with my children learning about money as well, because I got divorced when they were young. I bought their love, and I bought, you know, they went to the best schools and the best universities and had trust funds, and, you know, never had to work really. And I thought I wanted to give them the best life possible. But what I did is I took away from them the joy of being in a place where they had to go and fight for something and make something of themselves. I literally took that away from them, and I'll never forgive myself for that.
So then, on the flip side now, how do you want to be remembered as a businessman, a mentor, or something more?
I don't want to be remembered as a business person at all.
No.
I work with children in Bangladesh and help bring them here. I work with an organisation in Nepal where children have been trafficked. After all of my experience in business, these are the only things that matter now. And if I lost everything tomorrow, then those would be the things I cared about.
So what got you into like going to Bangladesh and Nepal and stuff like that? Because I've watched the videos and very interesting. It's something that not a lot of people get into. Why that specific thing?
I was going through a point in my life where I was learning about heroes. And the people that I had called heroes were successful business people. And then I met a lady called Maria Conceição. And when I met Maria was born into poverty. Long story short, worked as a cleaner in Portugal. And she said, if I'm going to be a cleaner, I'm going to be the Ronaldo of cleaners. And she went on and she was a cleaner, and she went to Switzerland so she could become a cleaner there and learn another language. And in Switzerland, she was hit by a car on a zebra crossing. She was in hospital, and because she was from the EU and Switzerland isn't part of the EU, they said, look, once you're better, you've got to leave the country. You're working here illegally. She went to London, got a job as a cleaner, saw a sign for cabin crew for Emirates Airlines, got this dream job, and then her first flight was to Bangladesh. And while she was there for 2 days, she walked around the slums and she saw all these kids suffering. And so she promised to help one family. Mm-hmm. Went back to Dubai, sold her possessions, went back to Bangladesh, helped one family. And she said, I can't help one family, I have to help more. Mm-hmm. So she Googled how to raise money for charity. And the first thing that came up on Google was to climb Mount Everest. This is a lady that's never been in a gym in her life. And so in her mind, it was like, oh, what? So if I climb to the summit of Mount Everest, then I can help these kids. That was her question. And it was like, yeah. Okay, well, then I better do that then. She's never climbed a mountain in her life, never run a marathon, never. So she found someone to help her. She trained, and 6 months later, she was the first Portuguese woman in history to summit Mount Everest. And that was the first mountain she climbed. the highest mountain in the world.
Highest mountain in the world, yeah.
And I've been to Everest, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's daunting as hell up there. And so she came back down, she raised money for charity. She's like, oh, hold on a minute, this works. So she Googled it again. How to raise money for charity. Go to the South Pole, go to the North Pole, do 7 marathons in 7 days in 7 continents, do back-to-back Ironmans, climb this mountain, climb that mountain, do the 7 summits, do K2, the most dangerous mountain. And now she's got 12 Guinness World Records and has saved 680 children from the slums of Bangladesh.
Amazing.
And I met her. And I got to know her. And one day she said to me, would you like to meet the girls? And I was in the Mall of the Emirates, and she arranged for me to meet the girls. And these 12 Bangladeshi kids came running over to me and said, oh, Mr. Spencer, hey, Mr. Spencer. And in that moment, I knew I had a connection to these children. So I said, let's go get ice cream, kids. Who wants ice cream? And they're like, yay. And Maria said, no, they can't have ice cream. I'm like, why not? She's like, they've never had ice cream. It probably won't sit with them. Mm-hmm. But we can take them to the fun fair. And I'm like, amazing, let's do that. So we went to the fun fair. Then we came out and we went to Carrefour. And I said, let me get the girls what they need. What do they need? Can I get some groceries for them? She says, they need everything. And I'm like, okay, so what do they need? She said, Spencer, the clothes they're wearing are all they have. They have nothing.
Right.
And I'm literally with these 12 kids, age 8 to 12 years old, that have nothing. And I said to the girls, come on then, let's do this. And so I said, get yourself some sneakers, get yourself some pajamas, get yourself whatever they needed. And they're like, what, to keep? And I'm like, yes, for you. What, each? And I'm like, yes. And we bought them everything a young girl would need, feminine hygiene products, hair clips, hair brushes, toothpaste, toothbrushes, socks, underwear, T-shirts, everything a young girl, a hairdryer, everything they would need. We spent hours in Carrefour. And we came out of there, and in that moment, I was now, this was a calling I had. Mm-hmm. And what happened is I spent more time getting to know her, getting to know more of the girls, and starting to help. And she said, we need scholarships. If the kids get scholarships, we're allowed to keep them here. If they don't, they've got to go back. I was like, shit. So I went to a friend of mine that's the headmaster of a school, and she said, if you can get scholarships, we'll help you. So I said to my friend as headmaster, I said, can I get a scholarship place, please, for one of the kids? He's like, okay, I'll do it for you. He's like, bring the child to me and we'll have a meeting with them. And so I took 12 kids. And I said to the kids, when you go in there, give him a hug, say hello. They're like, right, okay. And I took the 12 kids and I lined them up and I said to him, choose one. And he went, what? I said, well, you've only got one space, so you better choose one of them. I've got to let the other 11 down. And he just looked at me. He was like, you bastard. And he didn't take 12, but he took 6 that day. Yeah. And we got another school to take 6, and we were able to do that. And these were just magical moments for me, and they gave me such meaning and such purpose and such reason for pushing on.
So did they then start school in Dubai? And yeah, amazing.
And so these kids then led me with the podcast to be having the opportunity to make a documentary. And so we made the documentary about Maria and the girls. We then met Hannah in Nepal, and Hannah's story was even worse. And we involved Hannah in the story, and a girl called Lena from Bulgaria that had a horrible story. But they all had happy endings. Yeah. And I wanted to show people that no matter how much pain you go through, okay, there is an opportunity for there to be a happy ending. And so that documentary, which should be out fairly soon, changed my life completely. I'm no longer interested in money. I'm no longer driven by money. I'm no longer focused on money. I like what money can do to help these people, but for me, you're not. And as you get older, your dad will know this. You have less needs for money as you get older. There are things that you might, I used to change my car every 6 months. I don't. I don't have any. There's nothing about it that is it even interesting for me. My wife will say to me, why do you wear golf clothes everywhere you go? And she's like, you don't play golf. I'm like, but they're stretchy and they're comfy. She's like, do you want everyone to think you play golf? And I'm like, no, they're stretchy and they're comfy. And and we'll go for dinner. She's like, do you have to wear your Garmin watch for dinner? Can't you put one of your nice watches on? And I'm like, it's a nice watch. It's a Garmin. She's like, I said, my daughter's bought that for me. She's like, yeah, but since we're going out for dinner in a nice restaurant. And I'm like, shut up, will you?
The things you do when you were younger as well, the interests.
Yeah, they're just not important. So young people need to understand the fancy cars, the fancy watches are all irrelevant. The fancy clothes, irrelevant. The sexiest mofo you can be as a bloke is to be financially secure.
Yeah.
Okay? That's as sexy as it gets. Okay? Women love a financially secure man. Okay, you'll end up being dressed by your girlfriend or your wife anyway eventually. So there's no point. There's no point you thinking you're cool.
It's not like Gucci's gonna get used anyways. But yeah, I totally agree. That's just I don't know. You're just correct. I don't know what to say really. But I've got a final question for you, Spencer. Okay. It's been a very detailed podcast, and thanks for coming on as well. It's been very, very helpful. But a lot of successful people talk about legacy, but let's say all your money, followers, and achievements disappear tomorrow. What part of you would still matter in your eyes?
Well, the only thing that I care about, I want to be known. All I want to know to be remembered for is being a good father, and all I want to be remembered for is the difference I made to some of these children. I don't care about anything else. And legacy's a really weird thing. What's your grandfather's name?
Graham.
What's your great-grandfather's name?
Probably Graham, but...
You don't know?
No, I don't know.
What's your great-grandmother's name?
Well, I know two of them, but not the other two. No, I don't know.
Okay.
So
You don't know?
Yeah, I don't know.
So let's just take that. Your dad's probably 20 years. Let's say your dad's 25 years older than you. Let's say your granddad's 25 years older than him. That's 50 years. Let's say your great-granddad's 25 years older than that. That's 75 years. Yeah? 75 years. Yeah. So in 75 years, you don't even remember them.
I don't remember. And that's your family.
And that's your family. You don't even know them. So people are only going to remember me in some capacity for 50 years. And that's if I have grandchildren and they remember granddad. Other than that, because my kids will die 25 years after me, and my grandkids will die 25 years after them. So I think legacy is a bit foolish. Just do the work you can do now to make the difference you can make now, and hope that everything else is going to be okay. And the most important thing that I think that people need to know that they forget so often is you'll never underestimate the power of kindness. Kindness is a secret super weapon. And I believe that a lot of the problems that exist on this planet right now exist because of a lack of kindness. Everybody, if they just took time to be kind to one person every day, 8 billion people decided to be kind to one person every single day, that would be 8 people feeling that experience kindness. Changes your mood a lot, when there's people that are nice to you around.
Yeah.
And so for me, kindness is a weapon. When you reached out and said, would you come on the podcast? Let's be really brutally honest, okay? Is it a massively successful podcast that's going to give me shit tons of reach?
Nope.
No. Are we sat here on a Sunday afternoon right now and my wife would rather I be with her having lunch?
Yes.
Yes. Why did I come?
To help out, to be a help,
try
and be
and
nice.
Be kind and help you, okay? That's why I'm here. And you said that you were trying to achieve something. I thought, if I can help the guy, then I'll help the guy. That's it. Because there's nothing really in it for me.
Nope.
And so if we all just took some time, okay, there's a security guard downstairs. There's a coffee shop next door. Why can't we buy him a coffee?
Yeah.
And just say, hope you have a good afternoon. He'll remember that. Okay, why can't we stop and see the guy that's cleaning the bathrooms in the building and just say, how you doing, mate? How was your day? How was your weekend? Okay, and slip 50 dirhams in his top pocket. He will remember that. It's this kind of stuff that I think is the most powerful thing we can do. And whilst there'll be all of the bad and negatives that exist from greed, from deceit, from obsessive driven, selfish, ruthless types of things exist in the world by people's behavior, you will not be remembered for that. You're remembered for when you've been kind. And I want people to remember me in a positive way. So when that dash that sat there, 1970 to whatever that date is, that little line there on my gravestone, okay, when someone of your age goes and looks at it and goes, what did that mean? Okay.
It meant all that.
Okay, it meant some good things.
Yeah.
That's all. because I hate it when people aren't remembered. I think about my grandmother. My grandmother died 20 years ago. She was deeply religious, deeply Christian. Okay, and I remember she always cooked me chicken wings and chips when I went to her house, and she used to on the dining table. She used to play Scrabble and Monopoly and noughts and crosses with me. And my grandfather had one of those lawnmowers you would push up and down that didn't have any power, but he would have the immaculate straight lines on the garden. And I remember him standing above me, and me had my hands here, and he would be above me here pushing this thing up and down. And he used to tell really funny jokes. And my other grandfather used to be a magician, Joe. And Joe would teach me a magic trick in his secret room at the back of the house that I used to go in. And he used to be kind to me. And I remember those things. And those things, I don't remember the other bits and pieces. I remember those things. And it's those things that I think are important. And you're just surrounded by loads of people out there that do behave like that. So try and copy them, emulate them, and you can't go wrong, yeah?
You can't go wrong, yeah. Spencer, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule for this podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, mate, and good luck with everything, and I hope everything goes the way you want it to.
Thanks a lot.